This is Tuesday, April the 20th. This is American history. Now, the Johnson administration is going to see the greatest amount of escalation of the Vietnam War. Let's go back and look how everything began. Now, before World War II, Vietnam was part of the French Empire. It was called French Indochina. Now, on the map that you have, we have Cambodia, we have Laos, and then we have Vietnam. Now, this is sometimes referred to as the Rice Belt of Southeast Asia. This is the reason why France wanted it. It is the reason why Japan wanted to take it over during the war. During World War II, Ho Chi Minh and a group of people he led called the Viet Minh are going to first fight the Japanese, and then they are going to fight the French. In the late 1950s, Ho Chi Minh's forces will defeat the French. Now, the United Nations is going to call for elections to determine what form of government Vietnam is going to have. Now, the people of the South wanted a democratic form. The people of the North wanted a communistic form. Now, most of the people in Vietnam live in the North, so most likely the communists are going to win. President Eisenhower is going to show military support for South Vietnam. Now, here is Eisenhower shaking the hands of Ngo Dinh Diem, the leader of South Vietnam. Diem requests military advisors come to South Vietnam to train his army to defeat the communists. Now, if you were a South Vietnamese and you wanted the communists to win, then you are called Viet Cong. And Diem wanted the United States to train his men on how to defeat the Viet Cong. But the Viet Cong were quite numerous, and they are going to resist Diem's forces. But a bigger problem to Diem were the Buddhists. Now, Diem himself was Catholic, and he tended to favor those who were Catholic over those who were Buddhist. Buddhists made up the majority. The Buddhists are going to protest, usually peaceful. In 1963, the Kennedy administration got wind of a coup, a takeover, by the South Vietnamese army over Diem and his brother. The United States did nothing. Diem and his brother were overthrown and killed. The new military government of VM is going to call on the United States for even more aid. Now, Diem is going to be killed in October of '63, and of course we know Kennedy's going to be assassinated in November. In 1964, the Johnson administration will report to the world that an American destroyer was attacked by North Vietnamese gunboats in the Gulf of Tonkin. Johnson will go to Congress and ask Congress for the right to send troops to protect American interests in Vietnam. Congress agrees. Now, this agreement is called the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. This is, in a sense, an undisclosed war. This is the second undisclosed war that we have fought in since World War II has ended. We had fought in the 50s in Korea. Now, the North Vietnamese are going to escalate the Vietnam War by beginning to send in North Vietnamese regulars to support the Viet Cong. The North Vietnamese regulars are going to go down a trail that goes from Laos into Cambodia and then exits into various parts of South Vietnam. These North Vietnam troops are going to carry Soviet-made weapons and Chinese weapons. The route they take is called by the American military the Ho Chi Minh Trail. American troops were needed to carry the load because the South Vietnamese troops were being overwhelmed. American planes are needed to bomb the Ho Chi Minh Trail and eventually bomb targets in North Vietnam. But by 1967, 500,000 troops are operating in the South Vietnamese area. American troops found themselves fighting North Vietnamese as well as Viet Cong. American planes and their pilots were being shot down over North Vietnam. The pilots who survived were taken prisoners and held in the infamous Hanoi Hilton. The Vietnam War was different than most wars we've ever fought in. Our goal is to end communism. Now, in most wars we have fought in, our goal was property. We want to take that hill because the enemy has the hill. We want to hold on to that hill because the enemy wants it back. Not in the Vietnam War. In the Vietnam War, the United States is going to create fire bases in the middle of North Vietnamese territory. We then are going to wait for North Vietnamese or Viet Cong to attack. We're then going to blast away at them with artillery. And once we believe we have killed a large number of Viet Cong and North Vietnamese, we're going to pick up shop and move somewhere else. Now, when we went looking for the Viet Cong or the North Vietnamese, they're going to basically blend in the countryside. For the most part, they did not wear uniforms. Because they blend in, mistakes are going to be made. Innocents are going to be killed. This is a photograph that is taken outside the hamlet of My Lai. In My Lai, a small patrol of American soldiers are going to be ambushed, and the person in charge is going to call in the Air Force to bomb the area to strafe anybody who's on the roads. Many times the military is going to go too far. Prisoners from both sides are going to be executed out of frustration. Here, a South Vietnamese general is going to execute a Viet Cong soldier. The military again created a fire base. They created it in an area that they felt was suspected of being in enemy hands. Once the enemy would attack, they would repulse it with artillery and gunships. If the enemy did not come, then the Americans would send out a small group of men, and they would attract the enemy, who would follow them back to the fire base where they could be overwhelmed. Of course, sometimes the Americans will be overwhelmed. Those Vietnamese who backed the South Vietnamese and the Americans, in many cases, are going to be attacked by the communists. Their families are going to be taken hostage. Their lands are going to be confiscated. The death toll of the Vietnam War will mount during the Johnson administration. Opposition to the war will begin during the Johnson administration. Now, most of the soldiers who went to Vietnam had been drafted. Now, to be drafted, you were simply picked by selective service. Most of them were between the ages of 19 and 20. The average soldier who fought in Vietnam was the youngest soldier that has fought in any war in American history. Americans, though, of great wealth, could get a deferment. The poor and the minority groups became the foundation of the military. On college campuses, the students are going to protest. They're going to form organizations to end the war. Minority groups, led by Dr. King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference are going to add their voice. In 1968, which is a presidential election year, Eugene McCarthy from Minnesota is going to announce that he is going to run for president of the United States against a fellow Democrat, Lyndon Johnson. McCarthy announces that he is part of a peace party. Now, the first primary is always held in New Hampshire. And in New Hampshire, McCarthy is going to win. In February of 1968, the North and the Viet Cong are going to attack American troops and South Vietnamese during a religious holiday called Tet. Now, Tet is a time in which it is like Christmas and New Year all rolled into one. And both sides had agreed to a ceasefire. After Tet, Walter Cronkite, who is probably the most respected newsman in the United States, is going to go to Vietnam. He's going to announce to the American people that in his opinion, the war is lost. Now, here is the broadcast where Cronkite is going to say what he says. President Johnson is going to announce in March that peace talks have begun in Paris. In March, a large protest is going to be held in Washington, D.C. Now, President Johnson is going to talk about the war, and in a last-second edition, Johnson is going to announce that he will not seek re-election in 1968. Instead, he wants to concentrate on ending the Vietnam War. Here's the speech Johnson made. Bobby Kennedy, who had been sniffing around like he wanted to run for president, will now announce that he will run for president as well as an anti-war candidate. In the spring of 1968, Martin Luther King is in Memphis to give a speech to the trash haulers who have gone on strike. It is in this strike that Dr. King will be assassinated as he exits his room. Here's a story about Dr. King's death. Bobby Kennedy seemingly will win the Democratic nomination when he wins California in 1968. But after giving his victory speech, he will walk back to his room where he too will be assassinated. Now, the Democratic convention is going to be held in Chicago, and it is there that we're going to see great turmoil. We'll finish up this lesson tomorrow. Also tomorrow we're going to do a walkout worksheet, and then on Thursday, the 22nd of April, we're going to take our quiz over Unit 14.